mate. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world.
Preaching,
Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.
Hey yo, what up, world? This is your boy KJ, and we are the POGs. What's happening? I am here with my best friend, and I am out of it. We partied way too hard yesterday for our anniversary, the wife and I am here. What up, Chappie?
How here are you?
I am here in spirit. We went to Pebble Beach. Was absolutely fantastic. It was everything I expected it to be, and my wife treated me to an amazing day. And the old fashions were flowing and plentiful, and it got blurry toward the end.
What did you do for her then for your anniversary?
I don't even know. I know I bought a couple of gifts throughout. I bought a couple. My wife went way out. She went above and beyond today. This was like, I don't know. I mean, Pebble Beach was fantastic, and I also got like this amazing massaging chair for my birthday. Like, so this is the busiest week of our year. Like my birthday, the boys' birthday, and then our anniversary are literally every other day, the last week of August. So, it's been a rough and tumble week, man. And then just, going from birthday parties to, it was crazy. What up with you though, man? How are you?
My week was boring. Your week was way more interesting. Birthday.
Oh,
So you're now getting closer to 50. You're still not quite old.
I got 7 more.
43.
Yeah. Got
So-
7 more rotations to hit until I hit 50.
So how strange is it you just called a 52-year-old your best friend? You're weird, man. You got old friends.
I'm an old soul. I'm old soul. And I did not know. Let me tell you, that course, I see why the pros love it so much, but that course is hell. My God. Pro course is so much different than being on like your regular, you know what I'm saying? Your regular city
Sure.
course where you're like, all right, I'm pretty decent. Nah. You want your ego check. Go play on either. So I didn't even know. So they have pro courses and then they have pro-am courses where the amateurs play at.
Yeah.
And I went from, it was like me going from rec league ball or church league ball to going to play in the NBA. It was just like, I was like, that's embarrassing. So yeah, man, it was fantastic opportunity.
At what hole did you think maybe I should just take my putter out and just hit the putter the whole way?
Oh, it was done by the third hole. I knew I was in over my head. Like listen, when you get when you 13 swing on the first hole, you are in for a very long day. And and it wasn't anything that was difficult. It was a beautiful day, no wind. I mean, the sun was shining bright. It's just, man, those holes are. The pros make it look so easy, man. I have a whole new respect for like pro golfers. It is insane.
That's something I've talked to people about, like the difference between, anybody can go out and shoot a free throw or shoot baskets. That's why I think basketball is so popular, because really you can go out right now, get a basketball, dribble a few times, and go put the basket, put the ball in the hoop. So we all kind of understand there's the difference between just messing around, high school ball, college ball, NBA.
Oh,
people think golf is like, oh, well, I'm a duffer. I'm pretty good. Well, there's those guys who are on TV. If I just tried a little bit harder, no, it's you're a duffer. You play The pros, like you listen to, I think on this hole they are going to try he's going to have about 240 yards. He's going to draw left to right. He's probably going to try to go on the top shelf because if you're 5 yards too deep, it's going to go off the backside. Oh, he did. Look at that. He landed right on the front and rolls right up.
The amount of accuracy you need, I mean, you cannot wing it. You have to know what you're doing on courses like that. And I am extremely humbled that one, I got to play, and then two, to see just how far I have to go to build my game up to even come close to being on that level. So
you won't be. You. I'm sorry, KJ. You will never be close to that level.
Yeah, no, I won't. I won't.
Those look. I am one of those guys. I have not golfed in several years. Last time I was in Del Rio during a COVID mission, so it's been a while. But for me, even on a 9-hole, even a par 3. My whole thing is, if I get one par, I feel pretty good about the day. If I get a birdie, I just had one of the best rounds I've ever had. Like the rest of the time, I can shoot a 13 and not care because I got that one birdie or that one really good par that I got lucky on, So, yeah, I don't worry about all that other stuff. So
I got excited. I got close to a hole. I think it was either 6 or 7. I got close. I was like 4 over. And that was best shot of the day, and I was 4 over, and I was just like, I was like, we're good. Like we got to the turnaround that we got the front 9, and then we got to the turnaround, and Mark's like, you want to keep going? Nah. I was like, nah, let's go drink.
Oh, you popped smoke at that point, huh?
Oh yeah. I was whooped, man. Like the ego had been deflated. Like, I mean, we're used to playing, like I said, city park.
Sure.
I mean, city courses. Couple of post courses are pretty difficult to play. I remember down in Benning, they had a couple of courses that were challenging, but this was something like I've never seen before in my life. But the opportunity to just be out there and to play around and just have the change, right? To see what it would feel like. That's like, being able to go on to Dallas Cowboy Stadium and you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Practice or play with the team. It's one of the things where it's like, I don't know. But yeah, it's been a real weird week.
Yeah.
I got Raptors everywhere trying to recover. Then we did we went to Monster Truck Rally. So we had the Monster Truck Rally in San Jose on, I want to say, Friday night. And then our anniversary was Saturday. His birthday was Thursday. And then we did, my birthday was Tuesday. So yeah, it was that's been a week, man.
So did he choose Monster Truck Rally?
Yeah, he's in dinosaur and monster truck and Hot Wheel phase right now. So,
yeah.
Everything is, T-Rex and Megalodon is his favorite monster truck.
Oh, so, okay.
Thankfully, Megalodon was there in San Jose. So was Gravedigger, but Gravedigger broke. So that was a little disappointing for me. But yeah,
I've only ever been to one monster truck rally, and it would have been, I took my nephews, so they're both, grown 20. I think the younger of the two's got to be close to 30 if he's not 30 already. And I took them, my brother-in-law, their dad, who's my late brother-in-law. He worked for Napa, and so he gave us tickets, and I was like, sure. He's like, hey, would you take the boys? I can't go. I was like, yeah, cool. So I took them. And at one point, and if you've never been to a monster truck rally, the thing that stands out isn't the trucks, isn't the dirt, isn't the carts. It's how friggin' loud it is.
Yes.
It is one of the loudest things. Just the loud. And we're sitting there, and it's about halfway through, and I look over, and my nephew Zach, who probably was about 3 or 4 at the time, super excited to go all that. I look over, he's in his chair, fast asleep, and I'm just like, how in the world? How's this kid asleep with how loud this is? So sometimes things are just loud and they don't really matter that much. Which let's transition from that.
I was say that is a great segue. Great segue into what
I'm getting good at the segues. I think I'm doing pretty well.
That was on point right there.
Yes, because President Trump comes out and sends out a we'll just call it a tweet. I know it's Truth Social and all that. I don't have that app. And he basically says that he wants voter IDs. He wants to basically revamp the entire voting system, which I will say I agree with. Absolutely. I think we do need a revamp. There's lots of things we need to revamp, and voter ID is one of them. But you have some concerns. You don't necessarily agree with what his points were. Some you do. I know you agree with some of them.
So the modernization of the voting, right? The voting process. I absolutely believe we can do better, right? But if you can sit here and say that you honestly trust this administration to revamp the voting process and to do it above water to where it's legit, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At any other administration, I would take it with a grain of salt and say, okay, well, there's going to be some hits and misses, but overall, they're going to have the well-being and the integrity of the system at the forefront of their minds. I just think that this administration is crooked as shit. And anytime it's like a car salesman, right? Anytime the car salesman slaps the hood of a vehicle and tell you got nothing to worry about,
this beauty right here,
you should be concerned, right? So when you have an administration who has, I mean, at this point they've had in their hands caught in the cookie jar so much, it's to the point where it's like, you could tell me the sky is blue at this point, and I would have to look outside to confirm to make sure, because I just there's nothing I can trust from this administration. I mean, with a caveat that I was already losing faith in our governmental systems beforehand, but this is just excavate. It excelled my disbelief in the foundation of this country so much that it's just it's all a farce, man. It's a cash grab for people to get rich, whether you serve in Congress or the House or the judiciary. It's all a cash grab, man, and they're all sponsored by somebody. It's to the point where it's disappointing. But yeah, go ahead.
And that's the difference between us. I've thought that for a long time now. I don't think the only difference between what was going on between the Obama administration, Trump 45, Biden 47, or Biden 46, and Trump 47 is basically the face of the franchise.
Yeah.
Like these guys are like, let's think of what's the worst run, currently the worst run franchise in sports? Is it, I guess it could be the Oakland A's, it could be the Sacramento Kings, it could be the Dallas Mavericks. But like when the Dallas Mavericks go out and they trade Luka Doncic to the Lakers and say, oh no, this was a great deal. We got Anthony Davis back and we got a first round draft pick. And this is going to reset our franchise. You go, you believe this? Like, I know you have to try to tell us this, but do you actually believe it? And I think I think whatever his name, Nico something is the GM. I think there's a point where a lot of these guys actually do believe that. And so I think even within the Trump administration, even if you were to have the receipts and you were in the White House press room and President Trump showed up and you said, hey, Mr. President, I would like to ask you about whatever the concern happened to be that day, that week, that month. I have a big concern about the amount of money that is going directly from this point into the Trump administration's coffers, to your coffers, Mr. President. How do you justify that to the American people? Here's the receipts. I think that there would be a response of, you're full of it. No, what are you talking about? I'm not making anything off of this. This is because I think there is that belief system, and that it goes to the old lie detector. Like, you can pass a lie detector if you don't believe it's a lie. If you believe it's the truth. And again, this is not just the Trump administration. I think that once these guys get into the machine, you and I have talked about the military machine. You take a brand new E1 coming out of high school that's not very educated, and they get told what to do. They get yelled at, screamed at for a couple of years, and then they keep going and they move up the chain. And, you know, by the time they're in a leadership position, they've been so indoctrinated into the Army way that they believe that that's right. And you have certain, especially senior NCOs, who believe that yelling and screaming equals leadership. And you have senior leaders who think PT means that person. If he gets a good PT score, that's a good leader, because they've bought into that system.
Yeah.
And I think that the politics, that it's got to be the same thing. Whether when you start locally and you start to go, okay, no, I'm helping people, and then you move up and no, I'm helping people, and you're at the state level. No, I know better because I've been put in this position to represent other people, so I must know better. And then they go to Washington, and at first they kind of get put through the ringer of no, that's not how we do it here. You have to follow this playbook, and if you don't follow this playbook, and it's very much, we've talked about that also, the 2-tier system for lawyers and for the justice system. It's not black and white. It's money and not have money.
Yeah.
So if you or I right now, if we filled out our federal tax forms, and this is just an example because we're talking about it. If you or I filled out our federal tax forms and I filed and said, well, no, my wife is not, I'm not filing for her. We don't get income from her because she's a separate person, doesn't count. The IRS would come back and hammer us. Meanwhile, AOC says, well, I'm married, but I'm engaged, so I'm not. So because I'm not married, he doesn't have to disclose his financials, but we're married, so I can accept a $35,000 ticket to the Met on his behalf because it's a perk of being married. So there's the absolute 1984 of saying one thing when reality is another, or Schrodinger's marriage, to put it another way. And I think all of them, yeah. And that's not saying AOC is special. That's not saying she's the only one that does it. I mean, or the Democrats or the Republicans, and that's kind of where my cynicism comes in. But at the same time, I will say this: that's just kind of how society is now too. So am I honestly overly concerned about the country? And I don't think I'm not like some other people, and we've had some people who have posted in the chat that say, you know, this country, we're on the decline in terms of like it's imminent. I don't think it's imminent. I don't think this country is not going to end in the next 50 or 100 years. In the next 200 or 300 years, maybe, but I just don't see a situation where we wake up tomorrow and there is a legitimate existential threat to this country.
That is definitely a way. If you continue down the path of the way this administration is currently running, at 300 years, it's going to turn to 30 really quick.
Well, how would you? So let's examine that then. Give me a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year kind of step by step, because I've said, you've asked me, where's the line? You asked me that last week. Where's the line? At what point do you say, holy crap, we are on the path to full-on fascism, or we're on the path to full-on communism, or whatever ism you want to go with, right? Because I'm opposed to communism as much as I'm opposed to fascism. They're both equally horrendous to me. And they both lead to the same number of deaths, regardless. So to me, that line, I said this last week, is when guns are taken out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. To me, that's the line, because that's when you'll have enough people. If you're willing, as a law enforcement / military person, if you are willing to go into somebody's house and take away their guns, just because they have them. I mean, to me, I think there's enough Americans that's where the blood will flow, if that makes sense. Like, you come into my house, I would rather, give me liberty or give me death. I mean, that kind of was the whole point of 1775 was I'm not going to live under an oppressive government. And people can say, well, if you look back, it was a lot more oppressive now than it was then. Society is completely different. We do things very differently. They couldn't be online and communicate with somebody that's in Australia and literally in real time. So the world is very different. But I do look at firearms, and I know a lot of people don't believe this, but I do look at firearms as the great equalizer. And I've had people send me stuff. Well, what do you think about this? A black guy with open carry or a rifle slung on his back walking through Walmart. And I'm like, good for him. Is he in a state that authorizes that? Does he have a permit? Cool. I mean, personally, I've told you this. I think everybody, when they turn 21, should automatically be authorized to carry conceal. And then you only lose the right if you go out and shoot people up, like what happened this week that we'll talk about in a minute. So I like guns. I think guns are important to freedom.
They are. History has shown that this country goes as the white man tells it, right? And
sure,
overwhelmingly, the Second Amendment is if we were to poll it, right? If we were to do a national poll, right? And we say, list your top 3 amendments to the Constitution, right? I think we can say with pretty good certainty that the majority of Caucasian households will have the Second Amendment in their top 3, right?
Do you think black houses wouldn't?
I think we got other issues because our issues as Black Americans are not the issues of white. Because what we've seen historically in this nation is white Americans, even allies, even liberals, will allow a lot of stuff to slide as long as it doesn't affect their day-to-day, right? What tends to happen is when the government goes over the line, right, and it starts to affect the middle class white person. That is when we see policy change.
So that's called NIMBY. Greg Easterbrook has put NIMBY, not in my backyard.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, like I said, things that are important to us, like, the ability to be able to vote, the ability to be able to exist, those are important.
But wouldn't you think that guns would be a big part of that? If the average black person, and we know that you speak for all black people, so therefore you get to say, if the average black person is worried about losing their rights, and especially, let's say a what would be the natural next step of losing rights would be violence against you, right? Wouldn't that necessitate the idea of I better have a way to protect myself, even if the mob is coming at me?
No, because your Second Amendment and my Second Amendment is drastically different, right? A 52-year-old Lance O'Neill can open carry with grenades and rifles and all kinds of tactical ammo in the middle of Broad Street or the middle of Main Street on a Saturday and have a merry old jolly time. The threat, the idea or the assumption of me as a 43-year-old black man having a weapon is going to get the SWAT team called on immediately, where I'll be laying face down.
But I'm talking more about the defense of your rights. And what I mean by that is
there are no, so our defense, our rights are that it's different, right? And we started this show by saying there's 2 Americas, right? And there's 2, in effect, there's 2. There is no defense of our rights. We've seen it time and time again in the policing of those rights, right? The policing of the Second Amendment rights. how many school shooters, how many serial killers, how many so-and-sos have weapons on them in the midst of creating a hostile act, and they are, damn near escorted with a pat on the back and everything will be all right. But you let a black man get caught. Hell, the idea, how many kids have been shot from the idea of, oh, they may have had a gun, only to find out that they didn't have anything. I know it's sensationalized, but that is the essence of our communities, right? The mere threat of a liberated black community has caused literal riots in this nation, right? The mere threat. You look at places like Lakewood, Florida, right? They were minding their own fucking business, and one day they had a disagreement. Wasn't even a disagreement. The guy came in and yelled at the poor kid because he didn't like the way he didn't cross the street fast enough. And they went in, they burnt them, man. Well, they built their whole town down in Lakewood. So the effects, the inalienable rights of the Constitution are not, and they have not been enforced historically. And given the current trend, whenever America has a chance to do an equitable and equal policing of the Constitution, they always revert back to the default of, if it's black, we shoot first and we'll ask questions later. And if it's white, they get a pass. We'll slide them over and we'll figure it out on the way in. And that, that's not name blaming or anything like that. That's just the reality of the situation, right?
Tell me about this Lakewood, Florida. I'm not familiar with that one. I'm looking it up.
It was one of the massacres. It was one of the massacres in the early 1900s. So a lot of people like to talk about Tulsa and all that stuff. It was another in the instance of race wars where you had these independent black communities that had their own independent ecosystem and were thriving, and then for whatever reason the happenstance happened and they come in and they destroy the entire community off of a lie. And it's unfortunate, but it's just what it is.
Was it the Rosewood massacre?
Did I say Lakewood? Rosewood.
It says Rosewood. Okay, Rosewood. Yes. I didn't know that one. Well, so I guess I have the luxury of saying this, which is that was 100 years ago, and I think we're in a different place. But that's also where, again, I look at it and I would assume that, and I know what you're saying as far as walking around, carry, conceal, and all that, or open carry. But I would think everybody would want to have the equalizer in their home.
Yeah, we want to. We would love to. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret, and I will put on my King of Black People hat, right?
As one does.
If America ever got to a point to where they would just live and let live, life would be so much better. But
sure.
For whatever reason, Black people are the bane in the existence of American freaking power structure, right? Anytime it's like, oh, kick the blacks, right? Kick the blacks. Like, eventually the blacks are just like, yo, bro, just let us be. How hard is it just to chill? And it's to a point to where, all right, keep your money, keep your ecosystem, keep everything you got. Just leave us be. We're not asking for nothing. Just leave us alone. And even that is too much to stomach for and it's not all America. And I hate to put it like that because it's not. It ultimately, if you go back and you look at history, it's always that same demographic, that Christian nationalist, Bible thumping, Jesus is right up until the point he ain't right. It's right for me, but it's wrong for you. Jesus, right? American Jesus. I say it all the time. There's Christianity and then there's American Jesus. And American Jesus is the most dangerous deity ever created in the history of man. And it's just, you can't win when, you can't win. And right now we're in an administration that favors American Jesus. So you just kind of roll. We've been here before. We've seen this before. We know what this looks like. And it's different we're in the same fight, right? You and I were in the same fight. We're in the same fight. But you are on top, right? You're on top in control. And I'm on the bottom trying to get out of your guard, trying to pass the clinch, right? And every time I pass the clinch and I get the advantage, or it gets to a neutral ground, the referee stops and says, no, go back, right? Go back. Every time you look over the existence, every time progress has been made from an African-American society in this country, there's always been a reset. And this is just the latest iteration of that reset. So it's not like, I hate coming on here and doing it's the man. But fuck, until America takes a real life look and be like, hey, how about we've like I said it time and time again, we've tried everything else, right? We've tried everything else. And we have case studies. When you leave a population alone, just leave them alone. Leave them alone and let them be. They prosper, right? We did it for the Japanese. We kicked the shit out of the Chinese.
Yeah, homogeneous is generally a good thing.
You get what I'm saying? But for whatever reason, for black people, it's like, no, everybody else is good. We'll kick the shit out of you. The Irish got kicked. The Scots got kicked. The Polish got kicked. After a while, they was like, you know what? They've had enough. Leave them alone. And if they survive, if they thrive, right? But here we are. Where are we? 250 something years. I stopped counting into the world's greatest experiment. And the only common denominator is when all else fails, kick the shit out of the minorities. And the darker the minority, the worse off you are. We don't thrive because or we thrive in spite of, right?
Yeah, there's got to be something in terms of, I don't know. I'm sure there's papers out there that say something about there's deep psychological effects of people who just look different from each other.
Sure.
And a natural distrust of anybody that doesn't look like you do. And that's probably true of anybody. Like you said something a little bit ago that, and I think we talked about this last week too. And then we talked about it after we went off, was America goes as the white man goes. But that's true of everywhere that the majority. So, Brazilians go, Brazil goes as Brazilians go. India goes as Indians go. Japan goes as Japanese go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that, it's one of the things about the reset that you're talking about, though, is I don't believe the reset goes back to square one, if that makes sense. Now, we can say we're 250 years next year, we're 250 years down the line. And so for the first, 100 years, white people were moving forward, black people were basically at square one, slavery, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, okay, black people can have representation in Congress and they can be in the House and they can do some things. And so they move forward, certainly not where we were, let's say 1900. Now that's 125 years forward for white people. And the Irish are getting reset and different things like you're talking about. But black people are, okay, now black people are moving forward, and they're by 1910, they're at 35 steps, but then there's a reset and they get pushed back to 15 steps. They get pushed back to 0 and then go forward and back and go.
No, I'm absolutely with you. Yeah. It wasn't a 0, like it's incremental, right? It's
so that's the tough thing. I look at it, and some people, you recognize this and you'll say it, but I think some people, especially those that make money off of this, and make it about race consistently and do this, there's no recognition. There is and I get it. It's there's an inherent unfairness that white people are 250 years down the line, and because of resets, black people are only at 100 years behind. So the black community is 150 steps behind the white community, right? But that's still 100 steps further than where it was in 1864.
Right.
And I think that's where I would hope that eventually you get to the point. Obviously we would both like it sooner than later to get to the point where, yeah, we are post-racial, but I don't think there's a society on earth that is post-racial. If you go to Japan, you are treated differently if you're not Japanese. If
I
you're,
will tell you, the post-racial construct or dream is a liberal root, right? It's something that liberals like to say to pat themselves on the back.
hold on. Thad, I'm going to show what you wrote there. Oh, we should applaud and appreciate that. Did I say that? Am I coming off as being keep holding the black? I'm saying I said it's innately unfair, but that's the reality of it. I'm not saying that, oh, that's great and everything. But what I'm saying is I'm trying to look at it as a critical thought process. And I would love to get to the point where what I just said is ridiculous, because there is no difference. But not only is there a difference between racial, there's also a massive difference with money and with rich and poor people. And so that's a whole nother, until we get, well, I'm sorry, that's not my attitude. You should have watched me enough to know that I think it's ridiculous anybody being judged on their skin color is about the dumbest thing possible. Because racism, let me tell Thad, maybe you haven't heard my thoughts on racism. Racism is just being lazy. It's just being flat out lazy. If you're going to judge somebody based on the color of their skin, it's just being lazy. Because if you really truly want to dislike somebody, sit and talk to them for 10 minutes and they will give you a reason not to like them. Now you have a reason. If the only thing you're going off of is how they look, you're just being a lazy piece of crap. That's all it comes down to. I couldn't care less that KJ's black. I couldn't care less that you're black. I couldn't care less that somebody else is white. It doesn't matter to me. I recognize the differences. I'm not one of those guys who goes, I don't see color. Yeah, bullshit. KJ's black. I'm white. And, so there is that reality of it.
The thing is, that's not a bad thing. It's okay to acknowledge. That's what I'm saying. Okay. But see, so that ties into like the bigger thing, right? We can sit back, right, as men, as intellectual men, we can say, hey, you are white, I'm black.
Intellectual men, that means you hate women.
I'm clearly. So, you know what I'm saying? We have, and we can say, okay, things are different, right? I have a different, there's a perspective, there's a white perspective that I am oblivious to, right?
And I'm oblivious to, I cannot understand what it's like to be a black man either. Right.
So when you see things like, and I since this came up last week, the Museum of African American,
yeah.
So from a white perspective, right? You go in there and you see it and you say, oh, all they're doing is just saying that the white man is evil. This is every exhibit I see has a picture of how the white man oppressed the black man, and that's not, I don't want to teach my children that we're just some evil race, right? Okay, point noted. When I go in there and I see it, all I see for the first 220 years of the country's existence was, excuse my crassness, but you're not shit because of the color of your skin, and that's just the way it is, and you got to deal with it, right? So is either perspective wrong, right? I don't think so, right? You can come in as a white father and say, hey, son, I know it looks like it portrays us in a negative light, but we went through some dark times where people made some bad judgments. Going forward, we have to learn from this and do better, right? And I can say as a black man, hey, I know that for the first 230 years, shit was really bad for us, right? But I would like to believe going forward that it is based on merit. But what you have is, you don't have enough people coming to the table and making it equitable. Nobody's asking for equality, they're asking for equity, right? Yeah. And you'll see that disparity more as the class, once the battle of the classes start coming in, right? Because the old adage is true, right? A poor white man is worth more than an equally poor black man. We see it in our judicial sentencing structure. We see it in our job opportunities and placement. We see it in our communities, right? We talked about things like crime, right? Well, how do you solve the crime issue? No, yeah, it's not merit based at all. And that's my whole point. It is inherently not merit based.
The average person wants it to be, but you want it to. Anybody is like this. I want it to be merit based, but if it's between me and a black guy going for the job, I want the job. But so does the black guy. So we are all ultimately player one in our game, and everybody else is an NPC. But that goes writ large, and I agree with you, KJ, that the simulation is screwed up. That the black NCP has been made to be lower on the totem pole.
Yeah,
at least in modern, especially in modern America. But back in the day, Egypt ruled the world, and Mansa Musa in Eastern Africa had the greatest had the greatest kingdom in arguably the world. He was the richest man in the world, by some estimates. So it's there are cyclical, and in America, it's started off with something that, unfortunately, I mean, we've talked about this. That was the norm. There have been slaves throughout the history of the world, and when you have somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 years of recorded history, and slaves has always been the norm. I'm not sure how realistic it is to say, and not just slavery, but otherization. Let's put it like that.
I want to make a point, though.
Oh, sorry.
I want to make a point because I want you to know that I would say where are we? 40 and 40, right? A good 40% of our allies in the Caucasian community understand that, hey, slavery was a really bad idea, and we don't want to go back to that, right? But
you think it's only 40%?
Yeah, because on the other side you have 40% of African Americans who says that, hey man, that was a really bad fucking idea. I don't want to go back to that. But what you have is these two fringes, and we talked about the fringes, right? You have 10% of the Caucasian population, the Christian national elite, right? It's God, guns, and everything. Well, Liberty, if you let me finish, I'll explain it to you.
Yeah, that's what I'm listening to.
We're at 40 and 40, right? And that's 80%. And on each side, you have a 10% fringe ideology that just says, you know what? Hey, I'm okay with it because it led to an end, right? It led to a profitable end. And what we have is that fringe 10% that are running and controlling the government right now. America isn't scary when the 40% is in charge. Like we have to understand, and we talked about this a little bit last week. In a 13% minority, right, of a nation, you're not going to control the populace. There's just too many opposition, opposing philosophies for you to get a fair shake at life, right? When you're only 13, when you're only represented by 13% of the total population. But what happens is, too often in this country, when we get into these resets, these cultural resets, we allow that French 10% that likes to get in and thump their Bibles, and they'll take that minority community and they'll push it back, right? While they're still advancing it. So that 40% is still benefiting from the policies of that 10%, while everybody else is suffering. So collectively, everybody is moving forward except those that are repressed, right? We've seen it post Reconstruction, right? We passed the Reconstruction Amendments, 14, 15, 16, right? And then we allowed that fringe 10% to take over and say, you know what? That's not a country I'm willing to go forward in. And that led to another 75 years of regression and repression of the minority community, right?
Okay, I have two questions for you that I'd like a little bit of clarification. First one, what percentage of white people do you think would say, hey, I can snap my fingers and we will go back to the laws and rules of 1850? Meaning specifically the race rules.
I give you 45%. I'd
I
say
think you're crazy.
a 10% push.
I think you're absolutely crazy. I think it's under 1%.
No way.
I think the VAT. Okay.
If it was under 1%, an administration like this wouldn't have happened. An administration post Reconstruction wouldn't have happened. If it's only 1% of the population who believes that African Americans or minorities are inferior, none of the atrocities post slavery would have happened, right? Because slavery was the Great Awakening. You had a political structure that said, hey, we atone for the sins of our past. We realized that we made a mistake. You are now free. Go out and be free. We ain't giving you shit, but we ain't taking shit from you either. And if you survive, good luck, but you're on your own, right? But that's not the case. If it was just because 1% is such a fringe minority, right? You got to understand, MAGA, Make America Great Again, won overwhelmingly in the 2024 election, right? And what we have seen from this administration, not necessarily from the figurehead Trump, but from those in this administration, what we have seen is an ideal or a zest to go back to a pre-civil rights era time in America, right? This is just like it. So it's not, for me, it's not, and it's never been a Trump thing. It's never been a Trump thing. It's been those fringe 1%ers who are infiltrated the administration that is directing policy.
And that's where what you just said, I think, is very important. The fringe 1%ers. That's where I say I think it is probably about 1%. Now, let me ask you this then. And this is the other part. African Americans make up around 12 to 13% of the population.
Sure.
And because they are such a minority, have not been able to push equality or agendas that support the Black community in a way that maybe should have been, right?
Well, hold on, because that's not a fair assessment, though.
Well, hold on. Let me. I'm making a very specific point.
I'll let you finish now. Go ahead.
And sure. And what I'm saying is, okay, because the argument is only 12 to 13%, right? Have not been able to push for as much change as the community would like. And yet a 3% community has made phenomenal bounds in the last 15 years. And that's the gay community. The gay community has gone from essentially outcast, illegal actions, even in your own bedroom, it's illegal, to 2010 with Prop 8, I believe it was 2010, to today, nobody really gives a crap if anybody's gay anymore. And so a 3%, and maybe it's an unfair question. I don't know the answer, but the Black community has been trying to say, hey, we want equality, we want fairness for, let's say, since the end of the Civil War, since 1865.
We've gotten past equality. The difference is the support of the white ally. That is the difference. Any minority cannot do anything without support from the majority. The reason the civil rights movement was successful, it wasn't because Black people got tired of getting the shit kicked out of them. It was because white people got off their asses and started marching with them and started putting up enough fight to where they forced a voice in the legislature, right? It's the same premise, right? So I'll give you an example. The Asian American community makes up 8% of the population, right? They've been able to advance as a community. It could, because everything's communal, right? We like to say, well, the blacks aren't taking care of them, right? With the support of the white majority, the Asian American community has been able to advance. They've been able to establish their own school systems. They've been able to establish their own socioeconomic structures to where their money circulates in their community. Same thing for, you go back to the Jewish community, the Polish community, everybody, but they weren't able to do it until the majority said, you know what, leave them alone. Everything you have in common, if you go back and you study it, and we're talking objectively, I'm not talking, from emotion here. If you go back and study it, every minority that was oppressed only reached a point of stability and moving forward when the majority decided to leave them the fuck alone. The only common denominator you have in the history of America, you can't point to a single point in American existence to where they have gone, you know what? We take our hands off of black people. Whatever the fuck happens, happens. Not one point in time.
No. I agree.
Community has
Well,
had opportunity.
So I agree with that in theory, but I think there's also been the Booker T. Washington philosophy would have undercut that in any situation. And what I mean by that is where Du Bois was saying, hey, we not only do we need to be left alone, we need to circle the wagons and pull out the guns so that no white people come into our community. And Booker T said, we need to make ourselves indispensable because we need to integrate and we need to be so much a part of the community that the white America has to acknowledge our value. And so you have those two competing things. So if you were to have, and it's one of those kind of ridiculous things that you'll see people who are, we'll just say racist online, who say things like, they couch it, but ultimately it's like, it's racist, who say, hey, look, if anybody hates America, we should just buy a plane ticket and you can move back to Africa or wherever, right? And I understand the other argument. Your argument is, this is my country as much as yours, and I agree with that, right? And that's one of the biggest challenges. I thought, Thad, the reason I popped up what Thad said there, I thought that's actually a really, really valid point, is that you don't automatically, walking down the street, you don't automatically have to see someone and look at them and say, oh, they're gay. Now, we all know some very, very flamboyant people that is their persona and make it part of it on purpose. But until every black person does the Eddie Murphy, gets the makeup done for the day and finds out that we secretly give each other all of our, just take it. And, we have parties on the buses when last week, because he really exposed what white America really is. But, I think Eddie Murphy did that. That is such a phenomenal skit because it is so ridiculous and so over the top, but it shows kind of, there's this weird, there is that perception, because there is a grain of reality that there are people, whether it's white, black, Asian, whatever, who say, well, if it's between me and you, I'm not only am I going to pick me, but I'm going to take other people that look at me. And we just talked about in my class, we were just talking about meritocracy, and these kids don't really know what a meritocracy is. So I was explaining it. And so for the activation question, and when they first come into class, what's a meritocracy? And the second one is, why is professional sports a good example of a meritocracy? And meritocracy might be the only, athletics might be the only true meritocracy in America, the trans argument notwithstanding. And so I'd like to say that maybe I'm hopeful that because professional athletics can be seen as a meritocracy, and white people look at LeBron and don't, whoever, like Jaden Daniels has a helmet on and he has a face mask on, and I honestly could not pick Jaden Daniels out of a lineup, and because he plays for the Redskins, I'm not a fan of him as a Redskins. The Commanders. But I tell you what, I'm really ticked off, because every time I've watched him play, I'm like, this dude's legit. This guy's awesome. He is fun to watch. Damn it. Why didn't the Cowboys get him? And so I guess I look at it in terms of, I'm guessing you do too, that hopefully we get to the point where everything's a meritocracy. But even Japan, where it's one of the most homogeneous groups out there. Even in Japan, it's not meritocracy completely. I mean, there's still there's still that kind of class system to a degree. There's money definitely talks. There's the family connections, all that stuff.
See,
So,
here's the difference. Here's the difference.
oh, KG absolutely supports a meritocracy. Liberty, come on. Are you serious?
But I'm not naive enough to say that
That we're there.
That's the point I want to make. We are not a merit-based society. And anybody to sit back and tout that, oh, I'm only doing this based on merit is full of shit. We're just not there.
We are merit-based, but we're not a meritocracy where it's only about merit.
I can't even say that we're merit-based.
Really?
No. I even a prime example. All right, we can use sports, right? Sports. On the field, playing the game, right? As players, that is an absolute meritocracy, right?
Okay.
Absolute meritocracy. But after you get past that level, when you get to the administrative level, that is sports is a great analogy for how America works, right? On the employee level, right? On the level where things need to run, everything is merit-based. Cool. I'll get you to work. You can come in, you can work for me, you can make me all the money you want to. But the minute you try to own a team, the minute you try to run a team, now we have a problem, right? That's where meritocracy ceased to exist.
Well, see, that's where I think that's it. It's behind on the field, but it's been changing over the past 15, 20 years. The first black head coach, the first black GM, the first, but
no,
you're
right.
Well, but by that argument, how many female GMs are there in the NBA? How many female GMs? Why can't a female be a GM? They're half the population, and that's kind of the argument you get. No, it's a silly argument. Like
that's exactly the point, though.
Well, but there has to be a point where I would not trust hiring somebody that I don't believe has the ability to do the job. And we do have those innate biases based in society and based in our lives and all that stuff, right? So if you have a situation, and then of course what we observe supports our biases. I saw a clip go around of the first female umpire, Major League Baseball umpire. Her first call, the very first pitch that she called, was out of the strike zone by 3 inches, and she called it a strike. Would that have gone around if it was the first? I don't even know, the first Indian American. I'm trying to think of a group that we just the first Aboriginal Australian umpire. Right. Nobody would. It'd be like, nah. But because it was a woman, so what we observe also supports our biases. Always has, always will. Unfortunately,
yeah.
But there's a point. But I do think that Liberty. I do think you're wrong in terms of KJ doesn't support a meritocracy. I think he and KJ. I'm not meaning to speak for you, as my observation is that KJ and I both realize that no matter how much we want America to be a pure meritocracy, or the world in general, like it's just not. And unfortunately it's not. But I think we both would hope it. You want a schoolhouse or church house. I would hope that if the second happening happens and Christ comes and he establishes a government, that's where the meritocracy would come. Not everybody believes in that happening and part of it. So we can't base it on that until then. But for now, we do the best we can. So KJ, after all that, you got 1 minute and we went through one subject.
We did. Just to be clear though, Liberty, my issue wasn't that Asian Americans went to the SCOTUS for relief. It was the excuse that they want relief on behalf of the African Americans who were taking their perceived spot, when the data and the numbers just don't show that. Again, if you were here early in the show, it goes back to that theme where everything comes down to, when all else fails, kick the black person. Affirmative action, as we've seen time and time again, does not benefit black people. Black people fought for affirmative action, but we were the least benefited demographic group of affirmative action. So then to go to the SCOTUS and say, well, hey, I'm a minority too, and the reason I'm not getting in is because black people are taking my spot. I see. That's absolutely wrong. But again, we got a lot to talk about, man. This one we can talk for ages on. That's it. That's our time. We are 1 hour in. This thing goes by way too fast. Chappie, we either got to put another hour somewhere into the week. I know it's hard, but we're going to have to figure it out. But we got to go, man. Love you guys. Yeah, Liberty. We'll dive into that a little bit more, man. Yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit more.
Chief Rain, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world. Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr. Lance
Try to
O'Neill.
take over the world.